You won't believe what happened when a woman, an HOA Karen, decided to attack my service dog. Yeah, you heard that right. She actually sprayed my dog with something that could have seriously hurt him. This isn't just some petty issue, though. What she did is a federal offense. And to make matters worse, she didn't even realize what she was getting herself into. It all started on a regular day when I was out taking my service dog for a walk. Everything seemed fine until this woman, someone who's supposed to be protecting the neighborhood, approached us with an attitude. Without any warning, she pulled out something from her bag and sprayed my dog. I was in shock, completely blindsided by her actions. But what she didn't know was that, in doing so, she broke the law. I had no idea how things were about to escalate. This wasn't just an angry neighbor anymore. We were now tangled in something that could lead to serious legal consequences for her. And when the police got involved, everything took a turn I didn't expect. Stick around, because I'll be sharing the full story of how this woman's reckless actions ended up landing her behind bars. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I stood there frozen as she kept her hand outstretched, the spray can still in the air. My heart was racing, and my dog was looking at me, confused and scared. I tried to step forward, but she blocked me, demanding I get my damn dog under control. I had to keep calm, but I could feel the anger building inside me. My service dog is trained to stay calm in public spaces, but what this woman didn't realize was that her actions were crossing a line. I didn't even know what she had sprayed him with at first, but it wasn't hard to tell that it was something harmful. My dog started shaking, his eyes watering, and I could tell he was struggling to breathe. That's when I snapped out of it and pulled out my phone to record. I thought maybe if I showed the video to the authorities, it would help. But as I was filming, she just laughed, completely unaware that what she was doing could have serious consequences. I tried to stay calm and tell her that she was breaking the law, but she wouldn't listen. That's when I realized this wasn't just a confrontation with an angry neighbor anymore. This woman had no idea how much trouble she was about to be in, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I called the police, but I had no idea what was coming next. I had no clue how quickly this would spiral out of control. As I stood there, phone in hand, recording her every move, I could feel the tension in the air growing thicker. My dog was still shaking, clearly affected by whatever she had sprayed on him. I tried to comfort him, whispering soft words, but he was too rattled to listen. I kept my eyes on the woman, hoping she'd back off, but she just kept smirking, like this was some kind of sick joke to her. I dialed 911, my hands trembling. I could hear the operator on the other end, but it felt like everything was moving in slow motion. "Please send someone right away," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "This woman just sprayed my service dog, and I need help." The operator reassured me that help was on the way, but I knew it would take a few minutes. I couldn't just stand there doing nothing, so I tried talking to the woman, asking her why she had done this. She wouldn't answer, just kept going on about how she was sick of people like me thinking they could just walk around with their dogs. I had no idea what she meant by that, but it didn't make any sense. The situation was escalating fast, and I felt a deep knot in my stomach. It wasn't just about a confrontation anymore. It was about what this woman represented. She was an HOA board member, someone with influence, and I had a feeling this wasn't the first time she caused trouble. Her attitude screamed entitlement, and I could see how she thought she was untouchable. I kept waiting for the police to show up, but time seemed to drag on. Every moment felt like a ticking clock. I tried to keep filming, hoping this video might give me the evidence I needed if things got worse, but I knew the real fight was about to start. Would they even believe me over her? I had no idea, but I was determined to make sure she faced the consequences of what she'd done, no matter what it took. The longer I stood there, the more I realized how serious this situation had become. The woman was still acting like she had all the power, pacing back and forth in front of me, throwing out insults about how people like me were always a nuisance. But there was something more unsettling in her eyes, something that felt like she had a plan, like she was waiting for the right moment to escalate things even further. And the more she talked, the more I began to feel like I was out of my depth. I could hear sirens in the distance, but they seemed so far away. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I kept glancing at my dog, hoping he would calm down. His condition was only getting worse, though. His breathing was shallow, and he seemed confused, unable to settle. I knew I had to get him to a vet, but there was no way I was leaving until the police got there. I couldn't let her think she could get away with this. Finally, I heard the sound of tires screeching to a halt, and within seconds, 2 police officers stepped out of their cruiser. Relief washed over me, but I knew it wasn't over. As soon as the officers walked toward us, the woman's attitude shifted. She straightened up, trying to look calm and collected, but I could tell she was nervous. She started talking quickly, her voice high-pitched as she tried to explain away what had happened. She accused me of being unreasonable, said I was overreacting, and even claimed my dog was dangerous, which was laughable, given that he was barely able to stand from the shock of what had happened. The officers listened to both sides, but there was a certain unease in the air. I could tell they weren't buying her story, but I still didn't know where things were headed. Was this just a misunderstanding, or was I about to witness her actually get arrested for what she did? Every moment felt like it was teetering on the edge of something huge. My fingers clenched tighter around my phone, and I held my breath, waiting for the officers to make their move. The tension between us was almost unbearable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be resolved easily. Just as I thought the situation might start to de-escalate, a second cruiser pulled up. This wasn't just any officer. It was the HOA president herself, the woman's close friend. I hadn't expected her to show up, and I immediately felt my stomach drop. She walked up to the officers with a confident stride, a smug look on her face, like she was already in control of the situation. My heart sank as I realized she was trying to back up her friend's story, making it clear this wasn't just some random neighbor causing a scene. This was about power, about connections, and about who had influence in the community. The HOA president quickly started talking, adding a layer of intimidation to the conversation. She was calm, collected, and spoke with authority, something I could never match, not in this setting. She told the officers that she knew the woman who sprayed my dog, that she was a long-time resident who had a history of being harassed by people like me, people who didn't follow the rules of the neighborhood. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to paint me as the villain. I felt trapped. Not only was the woman who attacked my service dog now protected by someone with more influence, but they were also turning the story around, making it sound like I was the one causing trouble. My phone was still recording, but even I could feel the pressure building. The officers were starting to listen more closely to the HOA president, their body language shifting. Were they really going to believe this? Were they going to let her walk away, just because she had the right connections? I could feel my pulse racing again. The stakes were so much higher now, and I had no idea how things were going to play out. Was this just a power move, or was the system really going to fail me? I could tell I wasn't the only one who felt the tension. The officers were torn, clearly trying to piece together what had actually happened. I knew they had a tough job ahead of them, but I also knew that one wrong move on their part, and this would all slip through their fingers. The tension in the air was unbearable. The officers were standing there, caught between the HOA president's polished words and the raw reality of what had just happened. My heart was pounding as I watched them, desperately hoping they wouldn't be swayed by this new twist. And then, just as things seemed like they might slip away, something unexpected happened. One of the officers turned to me, his voice calm but serious. "Can we see the footage?" he asked. I nodded quickly and handed him my phone, feeling a wave of relief rush over me. He played the video of the incident, showing the woman spraying my dog and her attitude toward me. It was clear. There was no room for doubt. The officers glanced at each other, and I could see the decision forming in their minds. They weren't going to let her get away with this. But just as I thought things were finally turning in my favor, the HOA president's expression changed. She quickly pulled something out of her purse and handed it to the officer, a piece of paper. It was an official letter, stamped and signed. The officer took a quick glance at it, and his face hardened. My heart sank. It turned out that the HOA president had filed a complaint against me just days before, claiming I was violating neighborhood rules by having a service dog without proper documentation. She'd forged the paperwork, but the officers didn't know that yet. The game had just changed. This was no longer just about the dog. This was about my reputation, my rights, and the power these people had. The officer looked at me, then at the HOA president. The situation felt like it was slipping away, and I was ready for the worst. But then, just as quickly, the officer's demeanor shifted again. "We'll need to investigate this further," he said firmly, turning toward the HOA president. "For now, we'll be taking you in for questioning." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman who had sprayed my dog was now being cuffed and led to the car. It was a strange, bittersweet victory. As the officer walked past me with her, he glanced back and said, "We've seen enough. Your dog was attacked, and that's all that matters right now." But just when I thought it was over, a final twist hit. As the police car pulled away, I noticed a figure standing by the trees, watching us. It was one of the neighbors, someone I'd never spoken to before. They approached me, a knowing look on their face. "You're not the only one she's done this to," they whispered. "She's been doing things like this for years. You were just the one who finally stood up." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a single incident. It was bigger than I had ever imagined. There was more to this story than anyone knew, and I had a feeling this was only the beginning. The neighbor's words echoed in my mind as the police car disappeared down the street. I couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger had been unfolding behind the scenes, and my encounter with the HOA Karen was just a small piece of it. Over the next few days, things started to fall into place. The investigation revealed that the HOA president had been using her position to intimidate other residents, and there were multiple complaints against her that had been swept under the rug. My case had opened up a much larger can of worms. As for the woman who sprayed my service dog, she was charged with animal cruelty and harassment. The legal consequences were significant, and she was banned from the community. It felt like justice, but I knew this wasn't just about me or my dog anymore. It was about standing up to those who abuse their power and influence. In the end, my service dog made a full recovery, and the neighborhood was shaken up. But I couldn't help but wonder, how many others had been too afraid to speak out? I felt a strange sense of responsibility now, not just for myself, but for everyone else who had been silenced by fear. It was a turning point, and though it was a hard battle, I was proud to have fought for what was right.